I'm so excited. It's such an honor for me to be hosting this Women's Day event. I'm so humbled by some of you who were able to, join and come and celebrate. You can see I'm a bit shaken. This morning we wake up to the news about the Taliban takeover in Afghanistan and the crisis that is happening there affecting girls and women. Women are being moved from their current positions. You can imagine you are in a role and one day you wake up, you're told to move. Girls are being taken out of universities and schools. So we are so privileged to be in a position where as a people, as women, we are able to come together and really celebrate who we are. But I think the message is we cannot take this for granted and we cannot even stop, the empowerment of women, just considering what is happening around us. So where does the future is female come from? I know a lot of us would know that this is the slogan that Hillary Clinton was using when she was canvassing for the US presidency. But it comes a long way. It comes from the 70s. The reason why it resonated with me is that considering where the future of work is going, how the world is just evolving with massive digital transformation, it really allows us as female to actively participate equally, So the reason why we're having this celebration today, firstly, is to just continue to keep the emancipation of women, in our radar, but also to say, how are we going to prepare for the future that is coming? I believe the future is digital and the future is female. So welcome, and I hope you're going to enjoy. We have an amazing speaker lineup that I'm so excited to have. I've got Dr. Rose here with me, and I'm very honored to have her. And we've got Lindiwe Matladi, who is the Commissioner for IR in South Africa. I'm so thrilled to have her on the lineup. And we also have Ngozi from Nigeria, which is a fellow HR practitioner in the space that we are in. And critical is that how do we start to engage beyond the borders of our country? How do we start impacting each other in Africa? But also, how do we start lifting each other? And also, those are some of the things that we're going to be talking about. So at the moment, I promised you that we're going to have an experience with the Hotel Sky, and we've got Mika here, who's here to welcome us.
As we celebrate Women's Month, we would like to welcome you to Full Potential's inaugural event, The Future is Female. Hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, Mika. That was wonderful. So this is how the future will look like, robotics and things like that. So today we just want to ignite something in you to say, hey, what am I going to do to future-proof my career? So without wasting further time, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Rose, someone that I really look up to as an expert in the field. I'm going to have to go to my notes here to do a proper intro, Dr. Rose, so I don't short-circuit you.
Don't make anything up.
Okay, I'm not going to make anything up, but what really attracted me to Dr. Rose is that she's a futurist. So she's going to be telling us about what the future looks like. She's been in the consulting space for many, many years. So we know that in that space there's a lot of thought leadership, and so she's going to bring that as well. She recently was the group executive at APSA of the Human Resources, and now she's executive director at Gibbs. So welcome, Dr. Rose. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, Mabore. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm also going to do a little bit of a Mika, right? Future's female. So let's kick off. So, ladies, and I don't know if there are any gentlemen that have joined. More
sure.
men should be joining these sessions. So I'm going to start off with a story. Now, Jeff Bezos, one of the world's richest men, and he's a founder of Amazon, as you know, and he stepped down as CEO recently, one of the largest tech companies. So when he was asked, where do you think the next competitor of Amazon is going to come from? Interestingly, what he said that he believes that the next competitor of Amazon will be working, or is currently already working in a garage coding, 2 women, and they are in Africa. Now, of course, we can't blame Jeff Bezos for not knowing that Africa doesn't have many garages. But I do like the idea that he's saying his next competitor or next competitors are 2 women coding in a garage in Africa. I've never been able to find this quote beyond when I heard it on radio about 2 years ago. So I can't really confirm if he really said it or whether it was fake news. But I tell you, I heard it from a journalist on the radio, so probably is true. But it doesn't have to be that Jeff Bezos says it to make it true. We just have to believe it. We have to believe that we can be the future of the world, and then we have to work to make it happen. And that's pretty much all we need to do. So quite frankly, you could be the next entrepreneur that creates, you sitting here in the room with me, that could be the next CEO of the next Amazon, or you could be the founder of the competitor of the next Amazon. It is absolutely in your hands. Now, if you don't still believe me, I'm going to take the next 30 minutes, hopefully, and convince you that this is true. We're going to go to the next slide. First, let's just talk about the future's digital. Mabore was saying she believes the future's digital. I believe the future's digital. I don't think you need to believe the future's digital. It's all around you. But there are 4 data points I just want to give you that really just brings home the fact that the future is digital. First and foremost, in terms of the future of work, work used to be a place that we go to. And now it's a place where we connect. And most of the time it's virtually. Now, I used to say this before COVID and people didn't really believe me. They're like, what is she talking about? Now, after COVID, we know that, right? We know that we carry our office in our handbags. We have office anywhere. Mabore's got her office actually on her phone, right here with her. She can take it with her anywhere. So that's the first thing that has changed. The second thing that has changed is technology is uncoupling work from finite hours and from locations. You can work from anywhere, anytime, any place, at any pace. And therefore, if you've got a specific skill in Africa and that skill is needed in the US, you can serve the US. Why not? Because distance is completely irrelevant now. The third one job, one employer for your entire life with a gold watch at the end after 30 years of service, that's old school. And in fact, if you are an employer, you've got to realize that, because people are not going to stay with you forever unless you create new careers every few years for an employee, because people want to experience different things. Young people want to experience the world, and that's just how it's going to be. So when you onboard, that's important, but when you offboard, that's also important. And how you offboard is also important, because ultimately they might come back to you with a whole host of other experiences that they got from somewhere else. So one job, one employer for life, old school, doesn't exist any longer. That is your grandfather's world. That is not your world. And then finally, your co-workers are freelancers and your co-workers are robots. If you think that half of the emails that you respond to from companies that you've joined on a website or something, and you think that that chat is a human being, that chat's not a human being, that chat is an algorithm. And more you're going to work with people that are in other parts of the world that you will probably never ever meet personally, because you're working on project by project or by project in a cross-functional team. And you need to learn to know how to do that, right? We need to learn to be more collaborative so that we can, in a multicultural, multi-geographic context, work and be successful. So those are sort of the 4 things I start off with when I talk about what does the future of world look like. The future of work look like. But the more important question, and it's 2 questions, but first one, is the future of work African? And I think that's a very, very important question to ask. And it's an important question to ask because 38% of young people, people between 15 and 35, they say that when they grow up, I ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? They say they want to be American, they want to be British, they want to be Australian, some want to be Chinese. Very few of them say they want to be African. And of course, with the unemployment rate that we have on our continent, one can understand why people might think that that is a problem. But as I said before in the previous slide, with the world becoming so much more digital, you don't have to forego your status as an African to serve an American. You can be an African and serve an American. You don't have to be an American to serve an American. And I think that that is an important thing to bear in mind. So let's dive in as to why I think that the future of work is African. Now, we've all lived this during lockdown. The lifeline that we had was through our computers, through our phones. It was basically the lifeline to our work. It was our lifeline to our exercise, lifeline to healthcare, lifeline to education, lifeline to family and friends, lifeline even to the entertainment that we desperately needed by the end of the day. We were in the middle of lockdown. And you'll see from the slide, I'm on the next slide now, Kuda. You'll see from the slide, Africa's 180 billion internet economy future. This is a study that was done by Google and the International Finance Corporation, which is a part of the World Bank. And they said that we will have this 180 billion internet economy on our continent. And they believe that that economy will be extremely resilient. And I think you've seen it when we've lived through COVID. If it wasn't for the internet economy, we would all be sitting at home doing nothing, not being able to work, not being able to exercise, not getting access to communication. And they believe that this is going to happen by 2025, so just 4 years from now, and that it would account for about 5.2% of GDP globally. 5.2%, not of globally, of Africa's GDP. Now let me just quickly go through the data for you. And you'll see on the slide, there's a map of Africa and it says 1.3 billion people now. 2019 is when they did the study, and 2.5 billion by 2050. Africa will have 1/5 of the world's population by 2030. And for young people, 1/3 by 2030. This is not even 2050, this is by 2030. So Africa is not the hopeless continent. Africa is actually the hope of the world. Not the hopeless of the world, the hope of the world. And I want to just give you a sense in terms of the young population being the wealth. If you look at Germany, Germany's average age is 49, 50. They are moving towards retirement. Our average age in our country and some other countries in Africa is somewhere between 18 and 25. So many more productive economic years ahead. And in a digital world, as I say, you could serve from here and you could serve the Germans. You could serve the German economy if you need to. So that's the first thing. We're going to be the biggest labor force going forward. The second thing I want to add is that digital connectivity, mobile digital connectivity, is sitting at 40% now. And our urbanization rate is at 45%. Now, urban people spend more than people who are living in rural areas, about 70% more. So there's a market for products and services as we urbanize more. That's the one thing. On the side of the connectivity, 40% connectivity right now. And if we move from 40% to 70% connectivity, mobile connectivity on this continent, we create 44 million new jobs. That's almost every South African that is not in a nappy. Almost all of us can be served through that. In addition, I want to tell you that while we have the connectivity, we also have more and more investment in terms of the connectivity. So undersea cables are being laid. There's more investment in that. Google is investing in undersea cabling so that there's more cabling coming into the continent, and so is Facebook. And then the final thing I want to say to you, and you'll see that as the last little point about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. This is a massive change for us. With the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, this 1.3 billion people across Africa will be connected across all of the countries. We will be able to move freely. And the intent is to reduce tariffs on 90% of products. And if we reduce tariffs on 90% of products and we allow for free trade between the continents, we could increase our GDP to something about 2.6 trillion to about 3.6 trillion. You could increase it by that amount of money. Now, of course, I'm hoping you're hearing me say, ooh, there's opportunity, because all of those people will need products and services. All of those people will need people to do the work for them. All of those people will need new innovations. We are going to have payment services, and it's all going to have to be done digitally. So you can see that there are opportunities. And then finally, of course, we have to look at the building of tech talent. But I want to speak about that maybe a little bit later on. Let me go on a little bit quicker to the next slide. Let me just see if I can do that quickly. Let's look at venture capital investment in Africa. It's reaching its all-time high, and mostly in the areas of fintech and in the areas of e-commerce. Makes sense, because in Africa we still have quite a few people, many of our population that is not financially included. So to bring the unbanked or the underbanked into the financial sector, that allows, fintech allows us to do that. We couldn't go to shops any longer, so e-commerce allowed us to trade. So those are the two biggest areas. About 500 million of venture capital in US dollars has already reached this continent by the early parts of 2020. And it comes from outside of Africa. So we are attracting people with venture capital availability because they believe in the future of innovation on this continent. And just for your benefit, Mabore, because this is the area that you are moving into, an edtech startup, educational technology startup, became South Africa's first billion-dollar unicorn. So education going online digitally is a business that is taking shape also. Healthcare is a business technologically that is taking shape more and more. So therefore it shouldn't be surprising, and I'm going to the next slide. You shouldn't be surprised that Jeff Bezos says he's back for more. That Jeff Bezos says that this is the place that he's worried about for competition. That it is in Africa, it is women, and that they are coding. So let me go to the next slide. So now I'm going to ask the question, is the future of work female African? So I've asked the question, is the future of work African? Now let's ask the question, is the future of work female African? And it's also an extremely important question, especially when you think about how easy it is for things to turn around, like in Afghanistan, and go in the opposite direction. So let's talk about our continent. And Mabore was saying we should be so grateful that we have the opportunities here that other women are deprived of. I've got a slide here for you that's got Mama Benz and the taste of money. Now, I don't know if you've heard of Mama Benz. So Mama Benz is actually a term that is given to West African women, wealthy merchants. They trade in textiles, this kind of fabric that I'm wearing, this kind of textiles, lighter cotton textiles, bright and colorful, representing Africa. And they became extremely, extremely wealthy women. And they were called Mama Benz because they could afford Mercedes-Benzes. And these Mercedes-Benz were chauffeur driven. They didn't even drive them themselves. That is how wealthy they were. Africa is full of entrepreneurs. And women actually in Africa make up the largest number of entrepreneurs. 58% of Africa's entrepreneurs are women. Now the challenge is that these women, except for Mama Benz, tend to be women that run small businesses. They're not interested in scaling. They just want to put their children through an education. They're not interested in innovating. They're not interested in competing, in fact. And in fact, they run their businesses half the time so that they can spend the other time caring for the elderly, caring for their children, carrying water, carrying firewood, making sure that the home is safe. And that is not entrepreneurship. that is taking care of your family, and that is extremely important. But for entrepreneurship to happen, you need to expand your product and services. You need to provide a service that has a market, both locally and globally, that can compete, that can employ more people, and that can grow the economy. That is the true role of an entrepreneur. But because women don't get given finance, because women are left out of the workplace so often, they don't get the same level of access. And we find that, in fact, women entrepreneurs generally, they make about 34% less profit than men do. But here's an interesting fact, and you must pay attention here. If you invest in a woman entrepreneur, you get about 70 cents return against $1. So 70 cents against the dollar. If you invest in a man, you get 30 cents in a dollar back. So in fact, it makes more sense to invest in women entrepreneurs than it makes to invest in male entrepreneurs. It's the same thing as when we say women drivers are safer drivers. It's exactly the same thing. Women entrepreneurs are safer entrepreneurs. And more, there's a realization that investing in women makes a lot of sense. In fact, if we do invest in women, if on this continent women had the same job opportunities as on other continents, maybe not equality, but just the same as on other continents, we could also unlock about 144 million US dollars is locked up in women not living to their full potential. A woman was asked when she went and presented her business plan to funders, all questions that she was asked was about, are you sure you want to be an entrepreneur? While her male counterpart only had to defend the fact that he had his business plan. He just needed to defend his business model, his business plan, his finances. She had to defend why she was an entrepreneur. But female entrepreneurship does create more wealth. It creates more health, it creates more safety. Mabori's got her outfit on. You strike the woman, you strike the foundation, you strike the rock. We are the rock of society. So here's the hint I want to leave you. While women make less money than men generally as entrepreneurs, when women take on male-dominated entrepreneurial roles, like in the finance sector, like in the mining sector, like in the educational sector, like in the supply chain sector, they are on equal footing. And it's even better when they have a male mentor. So if you're thinking of going into a male-dominated space, that's actually where you are more competitive. Maybe because it is a space that women has a competitive advantage, but it's also the space that this is where the problems are that we have to solve. You're not competing against other women, you're competing against what the intractable problems of the world are. So if you really want to go into entrepreneurial space, go into the spaces that are generally male dominated. I want to show you the next slide. These women did that. And Lindiwe, who's going to speak after me, she did that. These women are working in spaces that are generally male dominated spaces. There are two ladies here from Nigeria, and there's one lady on the slide from South Africa. And even though Aliko Dangote and Patrice Motsepe made their money in cement and made their money in mining, the next billionaires from this continent, whether they're men or women, doesn't matter, but I hope it's going to be women, they are going to be the tech billionaires. And they're going to be tech billionaires that are working in the area of fintech. They're going to be the tech billionaires that work in the area of e-commerce. These ladies are all fintech ladies or innovation ladies in the area of technology. Those are going to be the tech entrepreneurs of the future. But it's not only in the entrepreneurial space that we're seeing changes. We're also seeing changes in the political arena. Over the past 20 years, from the year 2000 to now, 2018 to 2020, the number of women that are in parliament, that's in government, has doubled. And this is quite important, and I want to read this. There's a lady called Ambassador Kelly Curry, who said that we know for a fact that when women are involved, whether it's in local issues of their own communities or getting a seat at the negotiation table for the most critical issues of their countries, that it helps their countries to become more stable, to become more peaceful, and to become more prosperous. And you'll see in Africa, we're making great progress, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. We've doubled the number of women in that space. And that's fantastic news in terms of representation on the political agenda. So you don't have to be a techie. You could also go into parliament, and that allows you the seat, it allows you the voice to help for change on our continent. An interesting fact for you, in fact, the 3 countries where there are more than 50% women representation in parliament, I suspect is going to surprise you. Number 1 is Rwanda. More than 50% women in parliament. Number 2 is Cuba. More than 50% of women in parliament. And number 3, the United Emirates. The United Emirates. The UAE.
Yeah.
The United Arab Emirates. Women didn't start voting in the United Arab Emirates until 2000, but very quickly after that, after that group of people and that country made the decision that they're going to change things, they made the decision and they acted on it. So we can talk and we can talk, but we need to act. So in the political arena also, women are starting to make waves, even though power is still coded male. We go to the next slide and let's talk a little bit about tech talent. Now we've talked about there's 1.3 billion Africans currently on the continent, and at the moment from the count there's about 700,000 professional developers, people that have invested time and energy in becoming developers. It's not a very big number, but it's growing rapidly, and 21% of those people are women. This is an important thing I want to say now, because in fact only 30% of those people get their education formally in the area of technology, coding, technology, machine learning, artificial intelligence, etc., and 30% of them are self-taught. So it's so important, and they go to boot camps, etc. So it's so important for corporates, for NGOs, for government to set up more and more coding schools for girls to go to these types of schools so that they can learn to code, because that allows them an opportunity to either become an entrepreneur or the CEO of a large technology company, as Jeff Bezos is afraid to allow, which is why it's so important for us to continue the investment in girls that code, and I'm sure Lindiwe will talk a little bit about that. But I don't want to say that you have to be a techie. It's not important that all of us have STEM careers. Yes, it would be good if all of us could have STEM careers. And I'm going to the next slide. But there's more to just this digital world that we are living in than just the technology, the ability to code, the ability to understand Python. We also need broader, softer, functional skills. I started at the beginning talking about the future of work and saying that we're going to work in projects with freelancers and robots, with people that are in other parts of the world that we might never ever meet. For you to be able to do that, you need social skills. You have to believe that you can contribute value. So first and foremost, you have to have a growth mindset, not a scarcity mindset, but a mindset that says anything is possible. That for me is probably the most important thing. Secondly, you've got to learn to learn. Learning and unlearning, you have to continue learning. Every opportunity that you can get, find that opportunity and learn. And you have to learn to earn. It's very, very nice to have a technical skill, but if you don't understand finances, you don't understand how to make money, that's also not very useful. We have to move from IQ to WeQ, where we learn how to collaborate with others. We have to learn how to be critical thinkers. We have to learn how to be analytical thinkers. And we also have to learn social skills, which, to be honest, emotional intelligence is a skill that women have in abundance. We are good at relationships, we are good at collaborating, and we must continue with those competitive advantages that we have. Alvin Toffler said, and you'll see it on the slide, the illiterate of the future are not those that cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, cannot unlearn, and cannot relearn. The most important thing now in the future of work is not whether you have all the answers. The most important thing is to ask better questions. And there are so many questions still out there in the world. There are so many people that don't have the health that they need. There are so many people that don't have the financial access that they need. They don't have the education that they need. So it's quite important that we apply our minds to all these intractable problems. You can go and look at the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, and you'll see all the problems that we still need to solve. So there's a lot that we can do, and there's a lot that we should do. I am closing now. My second last slide. This is one of my least favorite graphics, Mabore. It's the graphic that says gender equality loading. We said 108 years to reach gender parity. Then we said 257 years to reach gender parity, and now we don't know what the number is, how many years it's going to take. And the reason why I hate this graphic, to be honest, is because it sucks the air out of the room. It replaces hope with despair, and it replaces what is possible with what's the point. But just because it's going to take forever to reach an arbitrary equality line, it doesn't mean that you cannot reach your full potential in your own lifetime, and that you don't have the right to do so, or that you don't even have the responsibility to do so, because you do. And we certainly are not calling for patience, we are calling for actions. Because when you lift a woman, you lift a community, you lift a society. And every woman that is lifted has a story that someone else can relate to. And that story provides the wings underneath someone else's wings. The wind underneath someone else's wings. And hopefully chips away at inequality and chips away at what we can consider to be impossible. So I don't want us to go for equal only, I want us to go for better. Precisely because I say we have education problems to solve, we've got health problems to solve, we've got poverty problems to solve, we've got climate change problems to solve, we've got financial exclusion problems to solve. All of those problems can have digital solutions, and women are best placed, just like men, to solve those problems and make a living and grow an opportunity, grow products, grow services, create more jobs by doing exactly that. It is true that gender equality is a moral issue and it's a social issue, but it actually also makes financial sense. Because if you invest in women, businesses who have more diversity actually perform 15% better than businesses who don't. So when you look at that gender equality slide and you get despaired and despondent by it, that might be facts, but that does not have to be your truth. And now I come to my last slide, slide 15. I just want to say in closing, this continent, it's a continent I love. I'm not leaving it. They'll have to carry me away here in my coffin. This is the place where I'm going to be, and this is the place I'm going to contribute, because I believe in the abundance of Africa. And I hope that in this talk, I've got you to believe in the abundance of Africa. From the past cradle of mankind that we used to be, to the future solutions of humankind, I believe that is Africa's destiny. It is our destiny, and women of Africa, your work, my work, our work, it begins now. So happy Women's Month, and thank you very much. Thank you, Mabore.
Thank you so much. I wish I could say, a round of applause. I hope where you are able to do that. Wow, amazing. I knew when I looked, I said, this is the right person, just to put the perspective in terms of where we are going as Africa. And I hope wherever you are, you starting to say, where do I feature in this hope for Africa? Where am I going to contribute? I am contributing in the education space. I am making sure that every person in Africa has access to a development opportunity. We're looking at holistic development, and we're looking at the future. What are the skills that you need for the future? So check us out on Full Potential Campus. The next speaker coming is Lindiwe. Lindiwe is the founder of Africa Geek, yes. focusing on making sure that we have the right skills in Africa from a tech point of view. She is also the commissioner for 4IR. We will also share her profile with everybody who's in attendance today. And Lindy is going to be talking to us about, now that we hear where we are going, now that we are aware of the massive opportunities that we have, how can I future-proof my career? Where will I be in the next 5 years? I guess it's a big question that I want you to ask yourself. You know, what is going to change, and how do I position myself for that change? And yeah, so over to Lindy.
So much, and good morning, everybody. And I'm really excited to be part of this event. And you know, I've met Ausma Borrell when she was still at Anglo American, so it's really nice to see what she's doing and with the work that she's doing. Last year, the World Economic Forum actually issued a report that said that now is going to take 135 years for the world now, or rather for women to reach gender parity, including equal pay. So, and you know, this has been a discussion that we've been talking before the pandemic. That time when they first released the report, they said it was going to take 100 years. So in a few months of the pandemic, we've seen that now it's going to take an additional 35 years for women to actually reach gender parity, and for, you know, and even for our girls to get to the point where they can have the future that they deserve, the future that they need. And we talk a lot about, you know, the fourth industrial is something that is coming. I know the pandemic has accelerated everything. We are already there. There's lots of companies in the US, for example, that have already are closing offices because they're not going to force workers to come back to the office. So if you were in, you know, somebody who's in the industry where you're selling office space, you have to think about how you're going to pivot, because that is already an industry that is under threat right now. So in terms of the skills that you need to have, it's about looking at where the future is. And I think the important thing is also, you know, we talk about the importance of unlearning and being a continual learner and continuing to learn and getting yourself the opportunities that are out there. And I think I've thought I'm not going to talk too much about, you know, theory or research or even a lot of in terms of what is, you know, the predictions that are coming. But I think one of the key things that a lot of us as women, we don't necessarily read a lot of business, you know, publications. And because we always been placed on the box where if you're a woman, then you must, you know, focus on beauty and fashion. And so a lot of publications that I get for women, they always focus on the vanity part of us, you know, looking beautiful, being able to, you know, to be skinny, and, you know, the 5 steps of how to lose weight in 3 days, those kind of things. But if I think that if we want to get to be taken seriously, but also if we take ourselves seriously and take our careers seriously, we need to start reading. You know, for example, one of the publications that I read, like religiously, I read the Harvard Business Review, I read the MIT Tech Review, because those are those where they focus on this, but also on the future and some of this of what the world is going to look like. And that is helping me to think about what is it that I want to do in the next 5 years and how can I get there. There's some degrees that we know that actually now they're not going to make a difference in the next 5 years, but what are opportunities that are available for us as women that we can start, you know, especially in STEM, for example, where we are chronically you know, underrepresented. If you think about, there's only 3% of Black women specifically in senior position in tech, and that is globally. And if you think about how many young girls are even entering STEM, they've been reducing and reducing. And because of the pandemic now, we are also seeing that how that is affecting schooling, how that is affecting. So for us, for example, as South Africans, our girls were already, there were only 23% of our girls that were taking STEM in grade 10. So I suspect that probably this year, we're seeing less when the stats come out, but also next year we're gonna see less, because they've lost so much time of schooling and a lot of the support that would have given them the confidence to feel that they can consider those careers. So the importance of really thinking differently about your career. It doesn't matter where that is. You could be a social worker. It's really about looking and saying, how do I make myself more competitive? How do, and I think also part of that is that as women, if you are ambitious, there's still some negative, perception about being a strong, ambitious woman who just want to go out there and get things. There's always this kind of questions around. Every interview I've done, they will ask me, how do you balance it? How do you balance being a mother and a businesswoman and being able to do the work that you do? But I haven't seen a man being asked that question. So when you are pushing and working hard and being ambitious, it's always the question of whether there must be some aspect of my life that I am probably not, paying attention to. And that is not true. I've always looked around, how do I make sure that I'm present for my children? For example, I am homeschooling my kids. So I am their teacher, and I did that even before the pandemic. I ran my own business, which I always say I've got two jobs, which is my company that pays my bills, and then Africa Team Gigs, which feeds my soul. So I do all of those things, and I give them all of the attention. I'm also a wife, and I'm always present at home, and I've found ways of how do I make sure that I actually integrate my children into my work. So I don't, if I'm gone, if I'm traveling before the pandemic, I used to make sure that I take my children with me on the trips. If I was traveling a lot, and I'll take them with me so that I also get them to be exposed into my world, but also, to make sure I can have the time that I probably wouldn't have if I was just traveling all the time and not being at home. So it's really around figuring out where exactly you want to see yourself. Having those goals, I write them down. So if I look back from, when I left university, when I had my vision board in terms of where I wanted to be, because I wrote it down to say, in 5 years, this is where I want to be. In 10 years, this is where I want to be. And when I look back, I've achieved almost all of that. And that comes to the point of really running your life as if it's a business, running your life as if, and it's a company, and having the vision that to say, this is what, because that is what it also makes you accountable. So when you look back to what you've written, it gives you, say, oh my God, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, but it gives you a lot of that a sense of how do I hold myself accountable. So for every career, find publications that are in that industry, because you will find a lot of research, a lot of predictions, even the prediction in terms of where the industry is going, and then start making sure that you upskilling yourself and be willing to learn, even from people that you may. I found that some of the people who've taught me a lot of stuff, even around with my business, is not always from my executives. I found that the people that have given me more insights about where we should be going, you get that from, your receptionist. So making sure that you spend enough time. Every employee in your company can teach you something. There are things that they know that you don't know. And as a CEO or as a leader, there are some things that probably your team may not tell you. So if you make sure that you are always accessible, you are always willing to learn, and you are always you keep yourself informed about what is happening in your industry. As much as for us, there's nothing wrong with loving fashion and being beautiful. Anybody who knows me, they'll tell you I love clothes. I always, if I go anywhere, I want to do my makeup properly. I wear my heels. So being a woman in tech, it doesn't mean that I have to be a tomboy or I have to lose a sense of who I am. So you can have the sense of who I am, but also be very intentional about your career. Be very intentional and be bold, and don't be shy to really dream big, and don't be shy to be ambitious and put yourself out there. I always say you need to prepare for the opportunities you seek. If in 5 years you want to become a CEO of a certain company, figure out, in the past 20 years, who have they employed? What are they looking for? And then you prepare yourself, because so that when that opportunity comes, you are ready. Opportunity dances with those already on the dance floor. Make sure that you put yourself and prepare yourself, so that if my opportunity comes, I'm not going to go and say, oh my God, now this is, I can get, I can't apply because I didn't have an MBA. If they hire people with MBA, then go get an MBA. Prepare yourself for that, and read a lot, because that gives you that opportunity to really start preparing yourself, but also making sure, and also there's a lot of courses right now. For example, you've got EDX, you've got Coursera, even Stanford Online and Harvard Online, for example, they offer a lot of free courses that they teach. So if you are interested in that, so that's where you need to go and study and make the time. So you will never always have time, because as a mother, if you are a mother or whatever, or you're busy, you always have to make time for the things that are important to you. So you prioritize what matters, and you make sure that you are prepared. And I think really being bold and going out and asking people who are where you want to be, either to mentor you or to give you time. If they don't have time, maybe to mentor you, but maybe they can give you the tips that you need. I found that, the only way to really get to where you are, you have to ask. And you will find that people are always willing to help you if you are prepared. So anybody who come to me and say, Sis Lindiwe, I want to get into tech, or this is what I want to do. I see, for example, maybe you're writing for a world conference. How can I do that? And if they say, I've been doing ABCD and I just don't know how to get to my nest, I will make the time, because one thing I know, that this person has done their homework. This person is intentional about where they want to be. All they need is just that person that can now open that door and help them. And you will find, and the worst that you can get is a no. If that person says no, it's fine, then you may end up sending 100 emails and get that one yes, but that's all you need. All you need is that one yes. So and I think what is also important, you need to also have a positive relationship with failure, and understand the most successful people, they fail a lot. So you need to, if you get to that point where you fail, you have that positive relationship where you're gonna say, okay, all it means is that I didn't get it right now. I need to focus on my next. So you don't give up, and you just you see that as a way, for you to make yourself better. And also, I always say, for me, failure and success, you need to see it the same way. If you fail, you need to move on from that as quickly as you can. And that's the same thing that happens with success as well. Because sometimes you may find that you can be so caught up in the fact that I'm so successful, or I've won anything, and then you become so complacent, and you don't do anything to make, to improve yourself. So failure and success, you need to treat it the same way. You celebrate today. If it's failure, you have your pity party at a corner. I always give myself, like, every day, if something that I wanted didn't happen, I give myself one day of having a pity party where I'll sit at the corner and just feel like, oh, I feel sorry for myself, and and hope that God will open all those doors, and I cry, but then from the following day, it's over. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to focus on it. I move on. And that's the same thing I do with any success. If I get successful in something, I'll give myself a day to celebrate. Yay, I'm so excited. But then tomorrow, I have to move on, because that's how you're going to, you keep on getting better. And you don't compare yourself with anybody. Our journeys are different. And I think sometimes successful, you focus on the ending. Look at, oh my God, they've made it. You look at the destination, and sometimes you're not going to hear the stories of the journey, of how long it takes. So of how much sacrifices and how much pain that they had to go through to get there. And understand, with every success, with every destination, I'm sure they may have been, some challenges along the way. So be ready for that, and make sure that you put yourself in that situation where you are okay with whatever outcome that happens, and you are kind to yourself. Sometimes we can be hard on ourselves. We look at our friends, if you look at, sometimes, I mean, when I started my career in my business, I would see my peers driving Mercedes Benz and stuff. I mean, I drove my Volvo, my first car, which was a Volvo. I drove it for like 15 years until my children said, this is a dinosaur, you can't drop us to school with this thing. I had to, that's when I decided to, that, you know what, then I can get a new car. But it was because the car was already giving me problems. But I don't compete with anybody. So I will drive my car until I'm ready to buy one, because my journey is my journey. And if I do want to spoil myself, I will spoil myself the way I want. And I think it's really important that you have to focus on what matters to you. What are your dreams? What do you want to achieve? And have a plan. You know, have that plan to say, this is how I'm going to get there. And put a list of people that could help you and approach them. Sometimes, maybe most of them, they may not respond, but that one person who responds, that's the only person you need. I believe that for me, there are no coincidences in life. And you just have to make sure that you are ready for the opportunities you seek. Thank you.
Awesome. Good morning, everybody. Great to be here. Thank you for the platform. I'm excited to connect with all of you, and great insights so far. In fact, as the session started with Dr. Rose, I was like, it seemed like all three of us had a session, sort of like a recap session, because we had little bits of pieces of some of what we will share in all of us slides. So excited to be here. I'm just going to jump right into it because I believe I'm in the way of us completing this, but it'd be great to share my insights with you as well, just on the topic that was shared, and just taking this forward. So Lift as You Rise Africa Woman. I like to, because this is virtual and none of us are sort of few, maybe one or two people are in the same space, but most of us are not. I just ask that we stand and stretch because we have been sitting for at least an hour. So if you could, and maybe I don't see all of you, but it'd be great if you could stand. Just go ahead, stand and just stretch a bit before we progress. I don't see you, but I believe that you are standing wherever you are. Just stand, give a stretch really quickly, and then we can just sort of sit back down. Okay, are we good? Yes? All right. And we will power on really quickly. Ibukun, are you there? Yes, thank you very much. We'll just go straight into the conversation. And today it's really, okay, so how do we lift as we rise other women, and lift as you rise? Just going to share some tips. Some of it you're already familiar with. We had a Menti question we wanted to ask on Mentimeter. I don't know if we could do that right now while we are online, but I will request Ibukun, I don't know if you can pop in the chat, but if you can't have access to Mentimeter, I will request you just sort of put in the chat, what ways have you experienced lifting by other women in the workplace? And I know maybe one or two men are in our midst, but it'd be great for you to pop that in as well. What ways have you experienced lifting by other women in the workplace? Please pop in the chat so we can get some insights here from you. What ways have you experienced lifting by other women in the workplace? Okay, I'm going to pull you all in. I'm seeing the names: Natalie, Nikki, Jessica, Glory, Sandiso, Dino, Lerato, Tabitha. What ways have you experienced lifting by other women in the workplace? Zanelle, Helen, Chuma, can we pop in the chat? Yeah? I just saw your message, Dr. Rose. I'm stretching, I promise. Okay. What ways have you experienced lifting by other women in the workplace? Mentoring, discussions, Glory said. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Who else is popping in information in the chat? What ways have you experienced lifting by other women in the workplace? Yeah? What ways have you experienced lifting by other women in the workplace, even if you're a guy in the room? Okay, sponsorship so that I could be promoted. Fantastic. Yes. Mentoring, discussions. So again, this is the challenge. We have to be able to speak out about this. Inspiring. Oh, it's just coming through. Fantastic. Okay, inspiring. I'm still a student, but I feel I've been lifted by my lecturers who fantastic as the only Black female in my department. Tough love, fantastic. Okay, we have to share more of this. We have to do more of this. We have to bring this to our awareness. And I think that's what today is really about. I mean, all of what Dr. Rose has shared, and as well as a previous speaker, it's Lindiwe, it's very important that we are getting insights into how we can do this better and bringing it more to our awareness. Okay, so if we haven't, we also have to take this charge, just take this baton and say, how would I lift other women in the workplace, wherever you work, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're in business or you're in school as a student, ask yourself, how can I also lift other women in the workplace, lift other women in school, if you're in school, and in your own business. Because for us, this is where it all starts. So the next slide really just sort of speaks to a KPMG women's leadership study that was done sometime in 2015, but the data is really what's interesting, and I thought to just sort of share with us. Right, it points out 86% of women recall being taught to be nice to others growing up. This was an internal a survey that was run by Ipsos for them, but it wasn't necessarily information for the organization. It was also just getting insight from the market. And it says a full 3/4, 76% of women today wish they had learned more about leadership and had more leadership opportunities while growing up. 67% of women said they need more support building confidence to feel like they can be leaders. And then 9 in 10 women say they do not feel confident asking for sponsors, and lack confidence seeking mentors. And a lot of them also sort of lack that, do not sort of like ask for access to senior leadership positions as men would. And for me, this is really, again, bringing to awareness the fact that this is our challenge, right? And to ask ourselves as women, even as we celebrate Women's Month in South Africa this month, to say, and just even across Africa, what can we do differently in this area? Just reading this and seeing this and knowing this. And I'm sure there's been a shift since then. But the question also is, honestly, based on what I'd asked, only a few people in the room responded. And so that's some of it. And it's not like all of us haven't experienced women lifting. It's just that when we're in rooms or in settings like this, we sort of do not also show up fully. And that's part of what the challenge is. And so this is the charge, right? Just be more aware about this as women, as we all are women. And for, and then ask ourselves, what can we be doing differently with this information as it pertains to us? Because a lot of the information is also sort of putting data out there, but it's then saying, what will I do with this data? And knowing that this is how I may be showing up, or more women are showing up. The next is really also on the global gender gap statistics. And I think Dr. Rose sort of spoke to some of it. So it shows the gap, right? The global gender gap index, right? And a lot has happened to date, right? But the question then is, looking at this global gender gap index, we're looking at the health and survival sub-indexes. There's the educational attainment sub-index, and there's the economic participation and opportunity, as well as political empowerment. Dr. Rose spoke to some of that as well, so I wouldn't be speaking too much on it. But I think just pictorially seeing that there's a lot has happened in the health and survival sub-indexes and educational globally, just sort of looking at it. But then if we look into our regions, which we'll just sort of pull up in a minute, we'll then see where the gaps are, and to ask ourselves, yeah, this can be daunting information or too much information at the time. But it's also then saying, what's the one area I will pick? For me, it's always the one thing. What's the one thing you're going to take away from knowing that, look, I need to speak up maybe in rooms, or, sort of do something differently that I can also lift other women, irrespective of what my where I am in cater or age, or even on the business spectrum. And then looking at also this global gender gap with that lens, the lens of, I can do something about this. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's overwhelming. So the next slide speaks to, and I just sort of highlighted it, sub-Saharan Africa, right? And if you look at sub-Saharan Africa, and I believe you can also sort of pull up the slide so you can see a bit more on it. So it says that years to close is 95.1%. This source is the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Index 2020, right? And if you look at the years to close, it sort of can break your heart because you're like, oh my God, that's literally a century almost. But again, for me, the question is, what can we do? Because if we also break the data down into countries, we get to see a little bit more around it. And so irrespective of where you are sitting in Africa, you will see the data around Rwanda, Namibia, South Africa, all the way down to Cameroon and Liberia. All the countries are on there. And the question I ask you, even as we pull up the data around the region ranking and the global ranking, is to ask you, as the women in the room, what will you do with this, right? This information, why is it on there? Yeah, Rwanda tops, the region in terms of some of the insights also Dr. Rose had shared. That's why I was saying that it seems like we had sort of done a hand holding on the slides, but the question for me is I'm bringing it to your person to say, how do you then lift as you rise? And I know a lot of times we look at it like, oh, well, it has to be somebody who is doing really great now in her career or in her business, or sort of leading the charge from a country perspective. That's not for me, but it is for you, because if each and every one of us decides that we're going to do something differently from how we speak up, how we show up, how we say, look, I will mentor somebody, or actively sort of pull someone out of their shell, or like Dr. Rose had mentioned, sort of, being a sponsor to someone as regards to getting promoted or getting a role, or, just one thing or the other in the spaces that we are in, then we will start to shift this. And I think that's where, for me, the clarion call is. Yes? Okay. So just before I go ahead, I just want us to pop in the chat. Share with me what's the one thing that's come to you as well, just from all of this information, the global gender gap, insights around our countries, but also maybe the chat around what will you do. I'd like to see one or two or more sort of conversations in the chat. Can you help me? And this is the world of virtual now, so it's not like we can unmute and speak, or we're all in the same room and we'll just pass the microphone to you. So I am passing the microphone to a couple of us, but by chat. So just type in and tell me, for you, what's coming to you, what do you think I can do based on these insights that have come through. Yeah? Monica, Sandiso, Glory, Daniel, Tabitha, Nikki, a couple of us in the room, Helen, Jill. Yeah? Who bailed the cat? What's the one thing you're going to do or is coming to you? Just thoughts around this gender gap, or more from what can I do versus what my country can do, or people who are more senior or in leadership, or, country-wise even, can do. Am I missing something in the chat? Not just yet, okay? Ladies. Okay. Why does it seem like women are more harder on other ladies? Okay, so that's the thought that's coming to you, Shamin, okay? Creating a space to share, Tabeleng has said, okay? So just being conscious of that space to share. Shamin, for you, is more the thought around why does it seem like women are harder on other ladies? That's interesting. I think maybe to ask you, I'll throw it back at you, and again, not for you to, just sort of to process and say, what do you see as regards to that? Why do you think that happens? Okay, so the thoughts have come through for you are more introspecting, and for Tabeleng is creating that space. Our power on, look for opportunities to influence. Glory said, okay, so for you it will be, how do I look for opportunities to influence? Absolutely, in your space, just sort of knowing that there's a gap. It breaks down by country, but we can start to do things differently, especially looking at it from the spaces of whether it's sort of like economic empowerment, or more even from the spaces that speak to educational attainment, health, survival. But again, in your space, whatever it is, politically What are you doing? What can you do? Because you don't necessarily have to be in the political space to also do that. It can be, say, for instance, in Nigeria, trying to get people to register to vote, or you getting your card, or speaking to women about it, or putting your money behind women who then come up and want to run. So it's the little things, but it's that awareness, because we have to collectively hold hands to make this happen, from that point of view of lifting. Yeah. Okay. Of course, we can level the playing field and go further faster. I believe that wholeheartedly. And I believe that the more we talk about it, the more it will become our awareness, because this is something we have to, on a daily basis, honestly. I mean, I hear, of course, we all have vision boards, and we sort of focus on what we need to do across spheres. And as Lindiwe also spoke to, and just understanding who you are as a woman, whether as a mom, or as a wife, or, an entrepreneur, or someone who's working in corporate. But this also has to be something that we create a box for. How can we level the playing field and go further faster as women, because that then helps to bridge that gap, and that also then helps us as women to then figure out solutions. I believe that there's even endless solutions as regards to how we can solve some of our challenges as women, and bridge these gaps. But with the more that we process it, and the more that it will show up, and have the answers. So a few thoughts, and I'll just sort of share as I start to land and close. How do we make sure women's ideas are ahead? Because it's important that women's ideas are ahead. How do we do that? So again, very internal, inside out, right? For me, because it's like we can hear all of these things and always have somebody else in mind. Like, I hope my boss is on this call, so she's hearing, or I hope the ladies in government are on this call, so they're hearing. But we never sort of, or maybe rarely, not say never, but we rarely also sort of internalize and say, what can I do? So for me, the charge and the clarion call is, what will you do? How would you make sure other women's ideas are ahead? How will you set the example for sort of typing in a chat in a women's group, or even in just an office meeting, and setting that example, going up front and sitting, and inviting other women to come up and sit in front, because it's important that women, there's representation. How would you do that? Speaking up at meetings and inviting other women to have the conversations, and doing same. How will you celebrate women's accomplishments? You as an individual in this room, not just sort of outwardly focused on other people, but saying, how can I celebrate women's accomplishment? What will you do, right? In celebrating, whether it's in the spaces of just, promotions or personal achievements, what will you do? And how do we also sort of like go ahead and do more encouraging, right? To go for it and go ahead, I've done this, and sharing our stories. A lot of us also have to be more conscious around how we share our stories to encourage other women. A lot of women, and I like that Lindiwe pointed, I made reference to the fact, she drove a car, this certain car, for a couple of years, and it didn't matter to her. And and I think a lot of times women can even see other women and just sort of think, oh my God, you probably never had the kind of challenges I had growing up, right? And all of a sudden I tease even some of the younger mentees that I have, because it's like all of a sudden when you say things like, oh, 20 years ago, I used to get on a bus, wake up at 5:30. No, not wake up at 5:30, be at the bus stop at 5:30 so that I can get to a job that was an hour or 2 hours away. And they look at you like, oh my God, you did that, because that's the current reality. But in their head, they just like, I don't think you ever had that struggle. But yes, we did. But the more we can share our stories, and people can connect with it and say, you know what? Oh, she did it. I can do it. And it's, it's not like, I can't attain this. Also, again, looking at it from your own point of view, what will you do to give women direct feedback? So you see something in the workplace, or in forums like this, or even non-work situations or forums. What will you do to give women direct feedback, even positive and not so great feedback, right? And how can you say it in a way that you believe that they would then run with the insights and the learnings, versus sort of feel like, look, this is the moment, this is a woman who doesn't like me, so I won't take that feedback. How can you give women direct feedback, whether you're in school, because I just sort of, again, aware that a student or two or more might be on the call, all the way up to the boardroom. How can you mentor and sponsor other women? Because that's the way that we will lift each other. How can you mentor and sponsor other women? What will you do in that space? Is it supporting in the communities? Is it supporting in the workplace? But be more conscious about that. This is your call and this is your charge, right? To bridge that gap and also ensure that, yeah, this future is female that we speak about, and the celebrating phenomenal women that we've gathered for is not just a one-time thing or 1 month thing, right? That in our everyday life, that consciousness resonates. And I'm seeing a few comments in the chat. I'll get to it in a minute. And the other is know and share what the data says, right? So a lot of information has been shared today by the speakers before me, and some of the insights I just sort of shared. The slides obviously will be available, I'm sure. So know and share what the data says, right? Be more aware about that, because again, if we speak to it or see it in that light, then it becomes more of our awareness and we can shift the needle. I'm just going to go to the chat for a bit just to read some of what's coming through. Chuma, okay, I think mine is helping women to not settle in jobs that leave them empty or don't excite them, all in the name of financial security. Love that. Okay, so that's your charge, that's your awareness, what's coming to you and what you want to do. Fantastic, Chuma, thank you. Ntabeleng, you cannot give feedback to someone you are not supporting. First, support them. Love it. Exactly. So just sort of, say support them and then provide that feedback. So there's that openness, right, for them to receive that feedback and run with it and do something with it. Fantastic. Chuma also says, expose young girls to different career choices, not just mainstream jobs they know from their neighbors, aunts, and uncles. Love it. Yeah. In Nigeria, then it was, if you're not a doctor or an engineer or lawyer, that's it. You don't have any other options, right? So yeah, absolutely. So true. So true. When you do give back, it will be received well. Okay. Yeah. And then when you give feedback, you said, okay, it will be received well. Okay. Love it. All right. So thank you for also the interaction in the chat, because we're all learning from one another. And as I wrap up, I just want to just sort of say we are our greatest allies. I know it sounds cliche even, but believe it or not, the more that we imbibe and bring this to consciousness, all of what we just sort of shared, then we will become each other's greatest allies, and we will also sort of shift and move collectively. And I start to change that narrative that comes through, like, oh, women do not ever encourage women or struggle to do A, B, C, D, or X, Y, Z, whatever is out there, right? We are building together. We have to see that, right? From a continent perspective, even within our countries as well, and within our organizations or businesses that we're running, even for schools. And that the more that we work together, right, the more we're ahead, because we will sort of pull together. The picture that comes to my mind is the two pictures come to mind. One is a picture of crabs right on the beach, and this seagull, I think, was going to try to trap or sort of grab one of them, and they all sort of clustered together, and he wasn't able to do that, because then the seagull hurt himself, I would say, right? And then the other is also the song by the Scripts, Standing on the Hall of Fame. There's a chorus there that speaks to do it for your country, do it for your tribe, do it for your nation. And that's my charge to you as I sort of end this session, to say, think about it like you're doing this not just for yourself, but also for your tribe, for your nation. Just, we're doing this because we have to collectively do this for there to be greater momentum as we rise. Thank you for the opportunity and the platform. Greatly appreciated. Back to you in the studio.
I don't know how my people survived slavery. Do remember that's why I believe. I don't know how the angels woke me up this morning, and I don't know how my blood still runs through my veins. I don't know how our rates run, not a day. Standing in the rainstorm, I believe. hater, hater, my lady, hater, hater. I don't know how the angels woke me up this morning, and I don't know how my blood still runs through my veins. Don't know how I raised run another day, standing in the rainstorm. I believe, standing in the rainstorm, I believe. Wow. Thank you. Are you doing a second song? A second song, can you please do I Love You? I Love You is a love song. It talks about love in a positive light. You know, it's important to tell your loved ones how much you appreciate and love them. And this song is all about that. I hope you'll enjoy it. I'm yours. I I've told you so many times. Now you know my love is yours, cannot be yours. Oh. I love you, and now showed you, now told many times ago. I love you, now showed you, now told you. So kiss me when you're sorry, so I could feel all your love. I'm sabing what I want, so zabik on chengawe baby. Is a give me Bambi Santa, so I could feel paradise in you. My love is yours and you are mine. Hey! And I've showed you many times ago. I love you, now showed you, now told you. Now go. I love you, now showed you, now told you. Many times ago. I love you, now showed you, now told you. Many times ago. Happy Women's Month, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate you. Thank you. My name is Madam Dambo. I'm Toilet. Dr. Rose Hello. Thank you. I love you, babe. You, babe. You, baby. Thank you.